Hello and welcome. My name's Super Saiyan and this video has been requested by one of my subscribers. This video is really all about Warhammer 40,000 and picking your army. So if you've already picked an army, you already have an army, you may not get an awful lot from this video. This is mainly for the newcomers, for people that haven't really heard of Warhammer 40,000 before, or they have and they're quite interested, but they're overwhelmed by the number of factions and armies that make up Warhammer 40,000 as a hobby. So I'll be using a little bit of this, which is a Warhammer 40,000 8th edition rulebook, and I'll also be having a look on Games Workshop's web store, going through some of the ranges there. So to start off with, typically when you hear of Warhammer 40,000, you may have heard the words Space Marine before. Space Marines have been around for quite a long time now. So let's start off with the rule book. This rule book you'll get with the Dark Imperium box set. Alternatively, I think you can buy it separately and it would cost you £35. So therefore it's cheaper to get like a set like Dark Imperium that has this £35 book in it. Gives you a little bit of the backstory to the Warhammer 40,000 universe and where they are now in the universe. Basically, we're in the 41st millennium. There's been a great rift caused by chaos, and Space Marines have just had a big refresh with these Primaris Space Marines, which are kind of upgrades, as it were, that a tech priest, Belisarius Call, has been working on over the past 10,000 years since the Horus Heresy. Stop me if I'm confusing you, but that's one of the main factions is the Imperium, and the Imperium consists of a number of armies, such as the Space Marines. The Primaris Space Marines are part of the Space Marines. You've got the Imperial Guard, which are kind of like your normal military unit with tanks and vast reserves of soldiers. Then you've got another faction, a part of the Imperium, which are the Imperial Knights. There are knightly households, and they're basically these big walkers, whereby there's one knight pilot in there. Then you've got the Mechanicum, which includes the Titan Legions and the mechanized units. They're more machine than man, really. Then you've also got the Grey Knights, which are kind of like the Demon Hunters. A couple of factions that aren't on this page as well are a new faction that was brought to the limelight sort of last year, and now this year is Custodian Guard. They're kind of the Emperor of mankind, who is the top of all the Imperium, really. His bodyguard are now like an army. They're all the guys in the gold. There's also Sisters of Silence, which are all female. They don't talk, hence why the silence. There's also Sisters of Battle. They're going to get a big release next year, and they haven't had new models for almost 20 years or so, I want to say. So there's that faction. There's also Legion of the Damned, and there's also the Death Watch, which go after all the Xenos or alien armies. There are sub-factions within all of these, such as the Inquisition and Assassins and so on. So the Imperium is by far the biggest in terms of ranges, in terms of little different armies. Warhammer 40,000, they don't do an awful lot about Xenos or aliens or different races. Imperium is the main focus, or the good guys, or are they the good guys? So they're all the Imperium armies. I'll just show you some examples. So if you see Adeptus Astartes, that's basically Space Marines, okay? And that's a new Primaris Space Marine in the new armour, the Mark 10 power armour. Basically like humans that have been extremely modified, given loads of different organs. They've been enhanced. They can live for hundreds, if not thousands of years. They've got this power armor that's basically got a power plant on the back that powers the suit, and they have these big bolt guns, or bolt rifles in this case, that fire solid projectiles that once they puncture the target, they then detonate within. So pretty cool. Poster child of Games Workshop and of Warhammer 40,000. Very popular, and you get lots of different, I say, flavours, different chapters of them, different colours, everything from these Ultramarines, which are blue, to Blood Angels, which are red, Iron Hands are black, Dark Angels are green, Imperial Fists are yellow, White Scars are white, obviously, and so on. So you get lots of different colours. So, you know, if you like Space Marines, there's an awful lot of choice within that army for you to go for. Also, they have the biggest range of any of the ranges out there, both with Warhammer 40,000 and Horus Heresy. So if you like some of the models in Horus Heresy, typically most of those are, you know, for Imperial armies and for Space Marines. So if you like the look of Space Marines, they were my first army, then there's a lot of scope and choice, and also you can paint them whatever colour you want and then pick a chapter. We don't have to pick a chapter at all, you can just make one up and have a kind of based on a first founding chapter, something like that. So here's a couple of examples. So you've got the Blood Angels, which are the red Dark Angels. They're in the green. Their Primarch was Lionel Johnson. Then you've got Space Wolves, which are a bit like Vikings in space, really. They've got the feral kind of appearance, you know, mohawks, very bearded. Then you've got Grey Knights, which are, they go after the demons, and they're very potent psychers. Psychic ability is becoming more and more common in the 41st millennium. Death Watch go after all the aliens or the Xenos, like Orcs and Tyranids, which we'll talk about in a moment. They're basically Space Marines, and so are Grey Knights, but just more specialised. Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard. They used to be called Imperial Guard, but they've been renamed Astra Militarum. Limitless supply of soldiers from lots of planets. Their main weapon is a flashlight, a las gun, which is basically this gun that fires you know, really damaging beams of light at enemies. So if you like tanks, this is the best army for tanks. They've got so many tanks, so many different flavours of them. They can have Space Marines as support, they can have Mechanicum as support. I say they're a horde army, but you could have an army purely made up of tanks as well. So if you like your tanks and your normal sort of soldiers and military commands and things like that, then Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard are the way to go. See, you've got some divisions, you've got some pictures of some tanks there. Adeptus Mechanicus. So Adeptus Mechanicus, they are the machines, basically. Mars has been changed into this big forge world that make all of the weapons, armour, machines, titans, the knights, you know, everything to do with war in terms of that sense. The Adeptus Mechanicus make them. They're more machine than human, than person. They think the flesh is weak, and that technology and machine can improve humans. So they've got some very arcane kind of weaponry, like radiation weapons and lasers, and some nice shielding. Very resilient units, quite specialised as well. Questor Imperialis, or the Knightly Houses. Now, if you like big robots, then this army is probably for you. They are piloted by a human, of course, that goes into the cockpit, but they're armed with these big weapons. The models are quite tall. You only need a few of them to make an army. Although their numbers are small, they're definitely hard to put down, and they just look stunning on the battlefield, towering above most things. Imperial Agents, this kind of covers both Assassins, Inquisitors, Sisters of Battle, which again will be next year, and Adeptus Custodes. That's what Imperial Agents sort of covers, which is all the other factions that aren't the main ones in the you know, in the previous pages. And then it's got an Imperium of War section, which shows you you know, some of the models, some of the Space Marines, mainly Primaris though. You've got some Knights here. As I say, they tower above most things. And some Adeptus Mechanicus, and some Grey Knights, some Astra Militarum, lots and lots of infantry, lots and lots of tanks, quite a few flyers as well. And then you've got some Custodes too, and some Imperial Agents. Now, on the flip side of the Imperium, you've got the Forces of Chaos, which are the direct opposite. They are the bad guys, as you want to say. As you can see there, you've got another Imperial Knight, but it's a Chaos one. It's a traitor one. Chaos have Space Marines, so, but with a more evil kind of nature. They have demons, they have a lot of psychic powers, they can summon things in, they have some abilities that make them tougher, more resilient, some abilities that make them faster. So if you don't want to be the good guys, at least you've got you know, the like direct opposite version. You can be the bad guys. Now, the Forces of Chaos, there's either Chaos Undivided, which has sort of all of the 4 Chaos powers, or you can pick one particular Chaos power. Now, there is Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle and Slaanesh. Khorne is the god of war and murder, basically blood for the blood god, if you've heard that before. Tzeentch is a changer of ways, so the god of magic and change. Nurgle is the great lord of decay, so entropy and fecundity. And Slaanesh, which epitomizes boundless excess, all things decadent and debased. There you go, that's typical Slaanesh. You know, sort of naked with female attributes, I suppose. There's Khorne, you know, murder and blood. There's red, it's got flaming sword. There's a bit of Nurgle there, so that's a death guard, so he's rotting but very resilient. Then you've got the Black Legion, which are the heretic space marines. You've got the Thousand Suns, very psychically potent. Then you've got renegades, and this is Chaos Unbound. So you've got, you know, a load of Death Guard here, which are obviously from Nurgle. So if you like the greens and you like the tentacles and the slime and things like that, Nurgle are the way to go. Here you've got some Thousand Suns, so you've got a big winged Primarch here called Magnus, massive model, and again you've got what looks like similar models to Space Marines, you know, they're Terminators. And then you've got Khorne, so you've got a big bloodthirster. So if you like the demons and you like a bit of a challenge for painting, you like very unique army, Chaos would be the way to go. You wouldn't really get bored of the models for Chaos. And that's it. So you've got the big Imperial factions here, and then you've got the big Chaos factions. So both of those forces are very diverse. I'll probably say there's more diversity in the Imperium range, as I said at the start, than Chaos. But recently, Games Workshop have brought in Death Guard. First time ever Death Guards had their own codex. Thousand Suns had their codex last year. Khorne obviously do. It'd be nice for Slaanesh to get similar kind of treatment at some point. Then we talk about the aliens, or the Xenos. So this is everything that isn't mankind really, and it isn't Chaos. So you've got the 3 things going on here. You've got mankind, kind of evil, twisted, corrupted mankind, and then everything else. And everything else includes some alien creatures that look similar to the film Alien, also look similar to the Zerg from StarCraft, also look similar to the aliens from Starship Troopers. Then you've got Necrons, which are machines, very, very old machines that can reanimate, a bit like Terminator. You've got Dark Eldar, which are kind of like the twisted version of Eldar, mutilated, kind of like the Imperium and Chaos, Eldar and Dark Eldar, or Drakari you might hear them be called. And then at the bottom here you've got a little segment about Orcs, which aren't really animals or plants, they're fungus. They're what you expected. If you've heard of Orcs before, like in Lord of the Rings or something, yeah, you're sort of on the right track. So Eldar, an old race, they once controlled the whole galaxy. However, they got to the peak of their power and lived very long lives, and most of their race lived in excess and too much pleasure. And over time, all of those emotions created one of the Chaos gods, the Slaanesh god, that ruptured the whole Eldar race, and the psychic energy unleashed, because Eldar are a pretty psychic race, it wiped out almost all of the Eldar and completely knocked them off the peg of controlling the galaxy. So if they hadn't have done all those things, then yeah, you wouldn't have Slaanesh. So Eldar, they have a very nice, sleek, unique look. They're a little bit like elves, I want to say, like space elves. You could almost say. They do have a demon. Well, I have a couple of demons now, but they do have a demon called Kala Menshikain, which is like an avatar. This big fiery demon that's got molten lava for blood, and he strides across the battlefield with a massive sword called the Wailing Doom, setting fire to things as he just walks over them. Their weaponry is very sleek, their armour is very sleek, they're thin, they're tall, they have high strength laser weapons. The troops themselves are a little bit squishy. Because they're an old race, they do have different what's called aspect warriors, which have perfected a certain style of combat. So you get things like fire dragons, which are great with melter weapons, and they're good at blowing up tanks and heavily armoured things. You've got howling banshees, which are incredible at fast strikes and melee combat, and so on. They're a very fast, high strength weaponry, manoeuvrable army with some psychic powers. On the flip side of that, you've got Drakari, or Dark Eldar. The psychic sort of abilities have sort of faded with these, and they've perfected more of a resilience to combat and more of a melee focus to combat. There are some lovely, lovely models. They're kind of like Eldar, but with spikes, with more knives, with more blades, with more horrific weapons to use against the enemy. They're more kind of like, they take great pleasure in abducting people and then torturing them and putting them in kind of gladiatorial kind of games. They basically kill for fun, and it's all a lot of fun for them, and pain is fun as well. You know, so that's Dark Eldar. Harlequins, a little bit of an offshoot of Eldar. They're kind of like a troop, like a majestic, acrobatic, quite fast, but very deadly army. Beautiful colour schemes. A great challenge to paint as well, but small in number. The Inari are very new in the whole 41st millennium. They're the disciples of Iniad, and Iniad is the god of the dead. It's a new god, so a little bit like Kayla mentioned Cain, but there's a god of the dead now for Eldar, and they believe this Iniad will be able to finish off Slaanesh once and for all. Moving away from Eldar and Dark Eldar, Necrons. It kind of looks like a Terminator, really. These metal exoskeleton warriors. They once were a race long time before the galaxy, and I believe the story went that they made a pact where they wanted their civilization to live forever, and they did, but when they awoken, they found that they were trapped inside these constructs. That's kind of the gist of it anyway. I won't go too much into detail with them, but they've recently just had a new codex out, which I'll be reading and going through and giving you my review and things. But if you like, I say robots, if you like machines, I say evil machines, you can't really call them evil as such. They just want to take back what was theirs. The galaxy was technically theirs long ago, way before the Eldar. And you've got a load of these tombs that are slowly powering back up again, and these Necrons are coming out of them. Very resilient army. They've got reanimation protocols, which mean if they're slain, they can, you know, get back up next turn. So they just keep coming back. Their weaponry is quite specialised too. They're not the fastest army or the hardest hitting, but they are pretty relentless. Orcs, one of my favourite armies. They're actually my second army that I collected after Space Marines. They look like orcs, like you would see in Lord of the Rings and things, but they're kind of weaponized, they're mechanically minded. They're fungus. Basically, there's no males or females, even though they kind of look male. The way they reproduce and things is just spores off their skin. That's why they're so hard to completely eradicate, because their spores travel many miles across the wind, land, in the soil. They settle down and they grow underground, and, you know, pretty much out pops an orc. What's really interesting is, though, the genetic memory that's passed on. They can make weapons and vehicles with very limited resources. It's quite ramshackle, quite Mad Max style. Not the best looking or the sleekest looking, like something like the Eldar or even Admech to an extent, but it does the job. It's very crude, but does the job. And when there's a lot of orcs in one place, it can be very dangerous for the galaxy. Just after the Horus Heresy, there's a huge threat to mankind when a massive orc force swept through the whole galaxy, almost destroying mankind. They're never to be underestimated. Even though they can't hit the back of a barn door, they're excellent in close combat. They have some very tricky, funky weaponry. They're great in hordes. They've got the War ability, which really pumps them up and gives them lots of extra benefits. And they're really fun to paint as well. Really enjoyable models. That's definitely what drew me to them. I was sick of painting sort of black Space Marines. I wanted to paint green, but I wanted to paint rust, and I wanted to paint metal colours and bone, and and that's what the Orcs gave to me. And there's different sort of clans within them as well, so you can have them as yellow or red or whatever. And then you've got some mech boys and odd boys, and these are the different weapons. So you've even got like these little squig things, squiggly creatures that carry bombs, crude big chopper axes. And then after Orcs, you've got Tau, relatively new race. I remember when these first came out way back in 2002, 2003 I think it was. They haven't yet worked out warp travel. That's how spacecraft travel in the 41st millennium. They rip a hole through reality. They go into the immaterium, which isn't really a reality, and they travel through it using a psychic being to guide their way through the warp and pop out the other side. And what can take a few weeks in the warp would take many years in the actual materium. But Tau haven't mastered that yet. They've got fast ships, but they can't travel very fast from point to point. They are, I say, a weak species. They're quite squidgy, hence why there's a lot of reliance on these big kind of battle mech, battle robots. So if you like the kind of Japanese manga anime kind of robot looking units, then this might be the army for you. They don't do very well in combat, but they've got some excellent guns. If you like firing a lot of guns in your armies, then I can't think of a better army than Tau to have high strength, long range weaponry. They also have little drones and hover tanks, things like that. Here's some of the suits. So that's just your standard Fire Warrior in his little armour, and then it goes up and Fire Warrior will go into these battle suits, and some of them, like Forge World, do these huge battle suits for them. And then we come on to probably the biggest threat for the whole galaxy right now. Chaos is a huge threat, but we're talking about Tyranids here. They can't be bargained with, they can't be reasoned. They are just an alien race that is built to consume. Some think that some think that the Necrons helped create them many millennia ago to wipe out all the biological matter, because when these things invade a planet, they're not extremely fast through the warp or anything like that, but they don't just eat everybody. They consume all of the biological matter of the planet, and they just leave the planet completely dead to the core. And as I said, they can't be reasoned with, they can't be bought, negotiated, they can't be feared in a way either. They can't be intimidated. Their whole purpose is to just consume. And these Tyranid hive fleets, we're only seeing the tendrils of the hive fleets themselves. So they're very vast in number. And this is basically how they do it. This army is great if you like the alien kind of aesthetic, with the jaws that come out, with the teeth and the claws. If you like swarms, so if you like a lot of little creatures, they're great. If you like the big monstrous creatures, like I do, then again it's another fantastic army to choose. Colour wise, you can really go crazy, paint exoskeletons, paint the carapaces, go for a Starship Troopers kind of theme, whatever takes your fancy. There's a lot of flexibility here with this army. Moving on from them, we've got the Gene Stealer cults. Pretty much before Tyranids invade the world, they send out little Gene Stealers that start affecting the population, and then you get kind of these hybrid warriors where the genetic material for the inhabitants is slowly, generation after generation, being changed, and eventually they'll give birth to a proper Gene Stealer, which is quite a scary prospect. But a lot of worlds don't even know it's happening until it's too late and the Tyranid force comes down and out pops, you know, this Gene Stealer cult. So if you like kind of like your hybrids, like your human/aliens mix, then again this would be a great little army. They're not the best against tanks or anything like that, or armor, or you know, any transport or flying, but they're, well, you know, second to none for ambush tactics and just appearing out of nowhere and then going back into the shadows. Very sneaky army. And then you've just got some pictures of them all. So you've got a big spread here of Eldar, and then you've got some Slaanesh here. So Eldar, you've got these big walkers as well, and fast jet bikes and grav tanks. You've got the Psychic there, Eldar Ulthran. You've got different colours for the Eldar races. So you've got the green of the BL Tan, you've got the red of the same Han, you've got the really nice yellow of the Eandon, and you've got some Dark Eldar pictures too, like there. They've got these big raider type ships and some nice looking flyers. You've got the Necrons at the top here with one of the characters. You've got the Tau, all these big suits with the heavy weapons and the cannons and the railguns. And then you've got the Tyranids and the Orcs. So you've got the Tyranids all here, so you've got some big creatures there, like a Tervigon and a Trigon. And then you've got the Orcs, so you've got these big stomper units. You've got some bombers and fighters, and you've got lots of the Orc boys themselves. And then that's pretty much it. It goes on to the Eternity of War, and it's got some more artwork of everything that's going on. And that's pretty much where we are in the 41st millennium for all of the armies. I hope this video has been useful to you. I would have loved a video like this when I first started the hobby, of someone going through a book and explaining all of the different races and the armies. I would have absolutely loved it. There are quite a few new ones since I started the hobby. Not only have there been expansions in the Imperium side of the universe, but there's also been some breakthroughs with some of the armies in the Xenos and the Chaos factions, and I hope it continues. There's certainly a lot of armies and factions out there, so I completely understand if you have any more questions about any of them that I've discussed today. Please do put it in the comments. Me or all of the viewers and subscribers would be over the moon to answer your questions and help you on your journey through this hobby. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.